Welcome, Loopers for Life, Game 19, live in the studio at Talgrace Marketing and Media. Here with my man, Cousin T Rock from the block. What's up, Cousin T?
Hey, it's good to be back.
It is good to be back. We took a week off just like the PGA Tour did, and now we're already in the 2022 season. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
You see where our looper is. I mean, you know, our in-house looper, Joey Sears, co-host, is not here. We just put down his microphone.
Hello.
But
he's probably looping for some old lady.
Oh, he probably is. Or no, isn't he going on a golf trip? I think he is going on a golf trip. So, I mean, you know, good for him, and I hope he enjoys it. There's nothing better than a golf trip.
Who knows?
We
got a good episode today.
Oh, we do, and I'm very excited because we're going to talk about golf trips. We're going to talk about the Ryder Cup. We're going to talk about a lot of different things, but really we're also going to talk a little bit of football.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. I would like to welcome, this is our probably third guest that we've ever had on Loopers for Life, but our first official guest. Well, no, the Monday Q dude was pretty official.
Good.
I mean, you know,
he was good.
I don't know if he's a blue check mark yet, but we do have a blue. Is he?
Yeah, he is.
Oh, good for him, man. But we do have a new blue checker in the house. Eric Wood, former University of Louisville offensive lineman, played in the NFL for the Buffalo Bills. Mr. Wood, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I appreciate that intro. And, man, talking golf trips and football, that'd be easy for me.
I love it. Well, we appreciate you taking the time, and, you know, I know you got a lot going on as you still serve as the Buffalo Bills color commentator on their radio network, which is what you have done really after retirement. Is that correct, Eric?
Yeah, there was a year where I wasn't with them, and then in 2019 I took over as the radio analyst. In 2020, because of quarantine rules in and out of New York, it wasn't going to be practical for me to do that. And then the last 2 years I was with ESPN and ACC Network, but decided to just focus on the Bills gig this year and my podcast and some other things I got going.
Well, and we're definitely going to talk about all that. And for all of our listeners that doesn't know, I mean, you know, Eric Wood was from Cincinnati, Ohio, played at Cincinnati Elder, which that's a high school program over there that puts out NFL talent all the time.
Yep.
Definitely want to talk about that. But came to University of Louisville, redshirted, and then basically had an historical career at the University of Louisville. Was a two-time first-team all Big East. Is that right? They were in the Big East at that point in time. Is that correct, you guys? Though you're out,
yep.
Is that right? It is all your Big East. They are in the ACC right now. So, and really, Eric, you know, one of the, I mean, how many centers can actually say they got drafted in the first round?
Bunch.
You know, it's become more popular nowadays.
There's not that many, I would think.
Not from the University of Louisville.
Not a ton. Yeah, not a ton. It's getting more and more popular now. You know, those great defensive linemen in the NFL, those pass rushers, are starting to move more and more inside. So now you're starting to see more centers and guards drafted because teams are realizing that if you have any weak link along the offensive line in the NFL, they can move those pass rushers anywhere and they'll take advantage of them.
Now, when you were at U of L, you were actually a center, and then when you played in the first few years in Buffalo, you played guard. Is that correct?
Yeah, my first year and a half in Buffalo played guard, and the Bills center at the time during my second year, he got hurt, and I moved in to play center at that point and never gave up the spot. And that's the crappy part of the NFL, though, because that's a great friend of mine who then lost his job because I moved over to center. And, you know, and I say great friend of mine, shoot, last year he played my member guest with me at Hurstboard. So we still remain friends. It's just the nature of the business, though.
That is, and I mean, you know, and tell me, what is the difference between, you know, just as you get accustomed to what you're doing in there, and like year 3, and then your Pro Bowl year, was there any kind of psychological difference or game day differences that you felt like you had an advantage during that Pro Bowl year? Because 2015, you were a Pro Bowler, which is a, you know, again, not many people could say that play in the, there's not many people that could say they
it's
play at
pretty
the
awesome.
highest level,
Sure.
and then you take it to another level. So I would like to hear about that and maybe what some of your mentality and what you had learned and applied during that year.
Yeah, that's a great question. Throughout my career, I felt like each and every year the game kind of slowed down for me. You understand what the defense is going to give you more. You understand how to go against these elite athletes that you're going against on the defensive line. And there were years prior to that where I probably even played a little bit better at times than I did that year. It's just all about timing in the NFL. There was times where I was an alternate for the Pro Bowl, didn't make it. There were other years where I landed on IR towards the end of the season where you can't get voted into the Pro Bowl if you're on IR. So kind of circumstantial. Even my final year when I had that career-ending injury, I was a Pro Bowl alternate again. And, I don't want to make excuses, but when you're playing in Western New York, small market in the NFL, and when you're playing in the midst of the longest playoff drought in all of professional sports, there wasn't a whole lot of Pro Bowlers coming from the Buffalo Bills those years.
Right.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Eric. So I got to ask, man, let's talk a little bit. I'm a huge U of L fan. So as you know, Josh is on the other side of the fence here with the Cats, but I'm a huge U of L fan. Should we be all in on Satterfield?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the way you look at football, so he takes over a 2-10 football team, and they have great success that first year that he was here, and they had some talent. They had guys. Javian Hawkins, Tutu Atwell had a special year that year, but they win 8 games in Satterfield's first year, one of the biggest turnarounds in all of college football. But the cupboard was pretty bare when Bobby left, and I don't want to sit here and make excuses. I played for Bobby Petrino; he's a heck of a ball coach,
Yep.
but and coaching changes nowadays. Because of the transfer rules, you could have so many guys leave the program, and there was essentially a mass exodus,
right
after Petrino left, and even towards the end of his tenure. So, the numbers were down. There wasn't a whole lot of talent. Satterfield made it work with the guys he was given. But in football, to instill a culture, a winning culture, to instill all your values into a program takes time, and then you have to let those guys kind of grow into it. And where you see some of the weaknesses along U of L right now, and I don't want to pick on guys, but through 2 weeks of the season, the offensive defensive line is an area you can point to. Those positions take time to develop. At U of L, we're not getting 5-star recruits. I don't care who's the head coach. I don't care if Charlie Strong, maybe the best recruiter in program history. I don't care if Charlie Strong walks through the door.
Right.
You're not going to get impact offensive and defensive linemen that don't take a few years to develop.
Well, and with that, and I'll be interested to hear your take on the transfer rule. And how that has affected the NCAA game, and what would that have been like when playing for somebody like Bobby Petrino? Because I would have to imagine it would have been impossible to do.
Yeah, and Bobby Petrino said something early in my college career that I'll always remember. He said, raise your hand if you want to play in the NFL. And I think everybody in the room raised their hand. He said, okay, good, because I'm going to coach you and my staff's going to coach you so hard that if you don't have aspirations of playing in the NFL, you're probably going to quit. That's just the way it's going to work.
I love that.
And I'll always remember that because, look, times are kind of changing. And a guy like Bobby Petrino, you put a microphone with social media back in the day, there would have been a meme every other day based upon the stuff he was saying to us. But man, I was talking to Harry Douglas a couple of weeks ago, and we were cold-blooded killers. Like, when we went into game day, it wasn't about dancing around. It wasn't about goofing around out there. We weren't worried about social media or message boards or whatever the heck was going on at the time. Like, we knew where we stood based upon what the coaches were telling us, and we were focused, man. And that's how you have
y'all had some great teams. Your teams, were historically
right,
some of the best.
Killers.
And they have done it at the line. And I think that just, on the other side of the fences, you watch football. It's just like what Eric said. You have to have time. That guy over there, who is it? Chip Kelly? Yeah, it's Chip Kelly out at UCLA. That he left, and he had all kinds of turmoil when he left Philadelphia for the NFL. To go out there from Oregon and then come back, and then now, 3 years later, after everybody and their mother transferred out to UCLA, he has a football team that beats LSU.
Well, he's obviously a great
Yeah,
coach.
but I mean, and I think that as time goes forward, I mean, Satterfield has that opportunity too. And one kind of going with coaches, Eric. What is like something in the NFL that has stuck over for you that you've applied into, all the future endeavors that you've been on since retirement, whether it's your podcast or being on the ACC network as a journalist and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime you spend time in the NFL, you understand that the stakes are high every single day. This isn't a 4-year scholarship you come in on. There's probably 7 or 8 guys on the team that are untouchable, either based upon talent or their contract status, and everybody else on the roster is competing for their job every single day. Each Tuesday morning, there's a group of probably 15 or 20 guys that come in and they do a workout in the facility. They change in your locker room, but those are the guys that the Bills or any NFL team are looking at to possibly replace you. So that's always on your mind. So I think you just learn how to be, this is a vague term, but you learn how to be a pro each and every day. You show up places early. You treat people right. You work your tail off, and that's what's going to lead to success in life. And it's going to lead you to sustainability, like in your profession, but then also in your marriage, your relationship with your kids, your friends, whatever it may be.
That's awesome, man.
That's
a great answer.
Oh, that is a great answer.
And Eric, so this is a golf podcast, so we're going to get there, but I've got one more. I'm going to jump back to UVL here. I know we're jumping all over the place, but I got one more UVL question for you. Now, look, I was excited as a fan to see some of the former guys like yourself on the sideline at the games here recently. Okay, to me, that's a big thing. Being able to mentor some of these younger guys and be able to show them, hey, look, here's a guy that's done it, that's been to the pros. I know on the golf side, that's huge. We talk about that with Jared Wolf. He comes to the golf academy and tells these kids, hey, look, here's how I did it. I am now on the PGA Tour. I was able to do this. You can do this. So having you around, having some of the other guys around the program, I think is huge. One more thing, kind of back to Satterfield, but Petrino and some of these other guys, look, to me, when you're a football coach and you make a mistake, Petrino is going to rip your face off, right? To me, Satterfield's got a little bit more of the Cragthorpe feel where it's like, it's okay, all right, we'll get him next time. And I don't know if that's a winning foot. Now, here's the thing, Eric. I'm going to take what you say and I'm going to roll with it. I'm going to tell my friends, hey, this is what we got to do because this guy knows, right? But right now, I'm telling you, man, fans are on the fence. And so again, the culture, we're building the right thing here. You feel like we're going the right direction?
I do feel like they're going the right direction. And I see your point. And nowadays, you got to be careful if you're a Scott Satterfield and how hard you get on a guy. I promise you throughout practice and whatnot that those guys, they feel it when they make a mistake. But, you got to think of someone like you. So think of a Dabo Sweeney. He's built a culture based upon love, respect, honoring your teammates, whatever it may be. Well, his assistants are hard-nosed, and that's kind of like if you go out and you watch Mark Ivey before a game, the defensive line coach for U of L. You watch Jack Bicknell, the offensive line coach. Yeah. Those guys are super intense, and I could run across the board. Like those guys are extremely intense,
right?
And I think you need a yin and a yang within a staff. Even with Petrino, him and his staff were really tough, almost across the board. But even the difference between Bobby and his brother Paul was more the relational type. He'd have you over his house for dinner. He'd put his arm around you because Bobby's coming down on you so hard. I think it's almost the opposite, but I can promise you, they're not sitting there at practice each week saying, hey, it's all sunshine and rainbows. They know that they got to continue to get better.
Well, and I think that as he has his time and he brings in his recruits and he establishes just all the parameters that you have covered, I mean, he's been a winner everywhere he's been. And I think it's not, you can't lose sight of that. And the second point, and there is no doubt that this has happened, and that is the transfer out of there. I mean, and the Bear was
right.
It was somewhat similar. I mean, it's somewhat similar to how things shook down in the basketball side and where it's at, and what Chris Mack is building forth. And so,
and look, Josh, and so the three of us know Vince personally. be all in on Vince. So these fans that are killing
all in
Vince,
on all of them, and I'm not even a car fan.
Listen,
I mean, he's got a great staff, and it goes all the way through.
And I'm sure Eric will back us up on this, but a lot of guys are hard on Vince right now. I mean, if you read Twitter, Vince is getting killed left and right. You should be all in on Vince. Vince is a U of L guy through and through. You can take the whole UK alum thing and throw it away. Vince is there, and he's going to do the right things. Eric, would you agree with me?
I agree with you 100%. And yeah, I like how everyone points to him being a UK grad, but at the times, and Vince explained this to me at the time, U of L's baseball program wasn't what
terrible.
It is now. It wasn't like that wasn't a decision at the time.
Yeah.
If you had an offer to play UK for baseball, it wasn't UK or U of L, it was UK or Notre Dame or wherever else you wanted to go. The baseball programs were just on completely different wavelengths.
Yep.
And U of L basketball wasn't offering him a scholarship like they did his dad.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's no doubt that he's the man. I mean, and I think that
he can hoop though.
Yeah, I mean, it's just today's times. I mean, all of a sudden the sky's falling. You're like, no, it's not. And I mean, and it's kind of like, let's shift this to the golf course.
Let's go.
Let's shift this to the golf course. I mean, the sky's falling. I mean, do you have that emotion when you're out on the golf course and you're playing? You maybe play 3 holes in a row and you're at even par or 1 under, and then all of a sudden you hit a bad shot and you're just like, oh my gosh, I lost it for the day. You ever had that?
I play a lot of match play games, so it's easy for me to kind of get back on track. I'm generally a fairly optimistic person, but there's some days where you don't have it, and it's frustrating. And golf is such a humbling game, as you guys know. And one of the things I love about it is there's always, as soon as you get one part of your game, you feel like it's right, then you start nitpicking on the next part of your game. So
right.
I try to manage the emotions.
How long have you been playing there?
Yeah, when did you start, Eric?
When did you start?
So I grew up playing golf, and then I didn't play at all from probably 8th grade through college. So when I picked back up golf clubs when I got into the NFL, 1, I was coming off a broken leg my rookie year, and then 2, I was 310 pounds as opposed to when I was 155 pounds.
A little bit different swing.
Oh, I remember that swing.
Mm-hmm.
I was fortunate enough to give you a lesson during that time, and I mean, and have you as a member over at my club, and so I remember that swing.
Yeah, and I tell people all the time, and I still work with Josh to this day, but I'm like, Josh gave me some of the most just practical, real advice that got me from a 16 or an 18 to a 12 and like a snap of a finger. It was like, bro, be an athlete. Or
right.
What club you got in your hand? Bro, you're too big to hit a club. You're not hitting enough.
I'm not even going to talk about that pitching wedge. The first pitching wedge you hit for me, I still remember it. I tell stories all the time. I'm going to tell one. I'm not going to tell one.
Yeah, well, I mean, we were like 105 yards from the green, and I was getting ready to pull my pitching wedge. You're like, dude, you're huge.
What are you hitting a pitching wedge? That thing is going on hole number 2. You're like, and you did hit it to 5 feet. I mean, it was inside 10 for sure. I remember that too.
Because I had to show up at that point.
So did you play as you were in the NFL? I mean, once you kind of got back and you came off that injury right there, was that something that you did while you were up there during training camp and all that stuff?
Yeah, so the way the NFL offseason will generally work is somewhere right around mid-April to mid-June, you'll have OTAs and minicamps. So during that time, you're only working 4 days a week. That's all they can make you work is 4 days a week, and they're generally half days. So you're out by maybe 1-ish. And so we would play golf. I mean, and a lot of guys' families aren't up there. People's families would stay home. Their kids are in school back wherever they're from. So we'd honestly play golf up in Buffalo. If it was over probably 45 and not super windy or anything,
right.
we'd play golf every single day, and we loved it. It's not, golf can be taxing on your body, but the country club I belong to up there, Wanaka, I mean, it has no cart path, so
wow.
It was either carts or no carts. And if the carts were out, I mean, I'm 5 feet from the green. Hope they're not listening.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I'm 5 feet from the green. I mean, I might only walk 500 steps.
Right. Eric, so Chris Redmond once told me that golf kept him in the NFL. But what I mean by that is he was the backup for Ryan for a long time there in Atlanta, and he was a good golfer, right? And so he'd go out and he'd play with the owners. He'd play with the top-notch Atlanta Falcon guys. And he said, look, me being good at golf has kept me around a couple more years because they like to take me out. They like to put me in these events. Did you ever use golf as a tool when you were in the NFL?
That dude was in there
Not
dominating.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely enjoyed it, and we would play a bunch of guys on the team, but it's a little different when you're a backup quarterback. So, like, once training camp
Than
started,
Great
offensive
point.
lineman.
That's a great point.
yeah, we
Just a
had
little bit
so
different.
When you don't play, too.
yeah, so we had training camp in Rochester, New York, which a lot of people will never believe. I know you guys know this, but it's a top 5 golf city in the
Oh,
country.
Oh, yeah.
And our training camp was right across the street from Oak Hill. So you have 2 courses at Oak Hill, Country Club in Rochester, Rondequoit, and Monroe, 5 within probably a 3-mile radius that are all just top-notch tracks.
Sure.
And so I would generally play 1 or 2, maybe 3 rounds on our off days for maybe that first 15 days of training camp. And then the sticks were in the bag until, January or whenever they could come back out.
Awesome, man. All right, well, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I get that.
and is there a golf course right there by the training facility or the stadium?
In Buffalo.
In Buffalo.
No, but there's some good tracks in Buffalo.
Right. I always thought there was like a little park and a golf course that was right there. It's Orchard Park, right?
Yeah, and Orchard Park Country Club is probably, I say not right next to it. It's probably 5 miles away.
I got you.
Max.
I got you. So I got to ask you, you talk about Oak Hill and one of the great golf courses. Tell us about your number 1 golf course that you've ever played.
Yep.
And then also I know that you played Whistling Straits too. So, which is going to be the host of the Ryder Cup next week. And I kind of want to hear about that experience too. And maybe Whistling Straits is your number 1 golf course.
We'll
so
see here.
let's hear about that.
Yeah, so to answer the first question, number 1, one of my they were back-to-back days, and we played Pebble Beach and we played Cypress this summer, and I had played Pebble Beach before,
That's
and
right.
it wasn't the greatest experience for me, only because most of what makes a golf round is who you're playing with. It was me and a buddy who doesn't even like to play golf. We got paired up with a man and his daughter, so it wasn't the greatest setup that day. But this time at Pebble, perfect weather. For me, I shot a 79, and
That's awesome.
I was one over through 14 holes, which was a lot of fun. So,
Eric,
that
are you
was a
playing the
great
tips? What tees are you playing?
round. No, we were one off of we were one up from the championship.
Okay,
team.
gotcha.
So,
That's impressive.
No, he's a
yeah,
good
I
player.
appreciate that. So, and so that was an incredible round. But I was playing with like 2 golf historians. So every shot you had, hey, Mark O'Meara had this shot in 95.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That would be cool.
And so that was really special. And then the next day we got to play Cypress Point. And Cypress is just, it's probably the prettiest place I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, that's
Another
awesome.
just incredible foursome that day. The caddies had been there 44 and like 48 years. And so
And they
their
really make a
stories that
difference
they
over
had-
there, right?
Yeah, so that was so incredibly special. I'd probably put that as number 1. And
Okay.
then this summer I got to go to Kohler and play Whistling Straits and a few of the other courses.
So,
up there.
so Eric, stop for a second. So this summer we've had Pebble Beach, Cypress Point,
Dude, play some courses, huh?
and Whistling Straits. Is that what you just said, sir?
Yeah,
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And so, like Whistling Straits being on Lake Michigan and having that, Midwestern ocean feel with the winds coming out. What is that in comparison to being actually out there on the Pacific? At those 2 longtime historical golf courses in American golf.
Yeah, a lot of times you feel like you're in a similar terrain when you're right there on the water, and then
Yeah.
it does have more of a Midwest feel when you're off the water, and it's you got the high heather and all that. But Whistling Straits is a tough track. The distance they're going to play at 7,700 yards, when the wind is against you, I know that they treat medium length par 4s, those 450s. I know they treat those like par 3s half the time nowadays, but you start getting into the wind on some of those holes, and it is going to be a bear. And that 16, 17 stretch on right along Lake Michigan into the wind with all the pressure, that's just going to be great golf to watch.
Oh, I agree. And I think that, with it being, next week and kind of September, you never know what you get. And you see everything kind of coming out of Canada still, and you're going to have that lake effect. And it's going to be crazy to watch up there with all of the fans being back and obviously the disappointment that we've had in losing
Yep.
which we've done, and then also losing the Solheim Cup, which just happened last week. So
Yeah.
America's been kind of on the down, and we'll definitely talk a little bit more about the Ryder Cup coming in. But he made a great point. 16, 17, and 18 on that golf course, and I've never played it, but I've heard that from everybody that has played it. It makes that course, even more great.
It's pretty awesome to watch on
Yeah,
TV.
And 18 will be interesting to see how the pros play, because there's a small fairway that goes down to the left. The safer play is up to the right, but the safer play up to the right still leaves you, and I know this isn't that tough for the pros, but you're looking at 190 yards into a little postage stamp green. There's hazard and a drop off left.
Right.
And then if you get up right, it's elevated, it's banked right before the clubhouse. So now you got a downhill from the rough chip into this tiny green. It's depending on where they put the pin. When I played it was front right, and that's the narrowest part of the green. You were almost better going short in the fairway and either putting and chipping it than even getting too aggressive right on line at the pin.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how many matches make it to the 18th, though.
Yeah,
that's with it being match play. Only a few may make it there, and when you play these courses, Eric, and I wanted to kind of go back to what you said earlier. Is it truly is about the experience of who you're with. And, there's nothing wrong with that guy, playing with his daughter, and he was probably in for the day of his life at Pebble Beach. But, whatever that drift was right there, sometimes it just doesn't give it that ultimate experience. Your buddies and who you're playing with, whether you're playing at Cherokee, which is the local muni here, 9-hole muni in Louisville, or playing a Pebble Beach out in California, it really is about the game that you're, the guys that you're with, right? Yeah. How fun is that now, Eric, playing with guys that have been in the past, great football players, and playing, in a celebrity scramble in Buffalo?
Yeah, that's a ton of fun. We just had Jim Kelly's event a few weeks ago, and it's everyone from Shooter McGavin, from Happy Gilmore, Chris McDonald. It's
that's
former
crazy.
NFL quarterbacks, NFL greats, a bunch of Hall of Famers. So that kind of stuff is fun. And the cool thing is, and one of the greatest things about golf is you could do it essentially for your entire life. So that's what draws a lot of these football players to when they're done, gives them an avenue that they can still compete. It's handicapped, so it doesn't matter if some of these guys didn't pick up the game at the same time as some other guys. It's handicapped, so you can go compete with anybody, and you could still get outside. You're with your buddies, you're gambling, you're doing whatever, but it's not so taxing on your body like maybe going out and shooting some hoops like Josh likes to do.
Oh, yeah, I've been taxed on my body a few times in that regards.
It was funny. Somebody the other night said, I play up in the Ascension Men's League, Eric, and somebody said, did E. Wood come play in the Ascension Men's League? And I was like, yeah. He goes, well, that wasn't fair.
That was a good game. I played against Eric that day. I got to push.
How is that not fair?
I remember it being fair. I'm not even going to talk about that bounce pass I threw in between for the winning hoop. But anyways, what's tougher, Eric? 1 yard in the NFL or a 3-foot downhill left to right putt?
It depends who the defense is, I guess.
Man.
But no, they both present their challenges. That's for sure.
All right, I got one more question for you.
Hey, I like that though, Josh. Let me take one there. Who's the best player you've ever played against, Eric, or maybe even with?
Yes, that's a good one.
Yeah, that question is so loaded because I played against Vince Wilfork, I believe 15 or 16 times, and really good player. You're not going to move him off the ball, but not a dynamic pass rusher. So they all present different challenges. And so people always say, who's the toughest guy I went against? And honestly, it's generally some young cat in a contract year that's going to go hard every single play, trying to make plays in the backfield, trying to get some stats. But the guys that you've heard of, the Aaron Donalds, the J.J. Watts, those guys are the real deal. And anybody that can go through you and around you like those guys can are always dangerous. But probably the best true nose guard I went against in my career was Damon Harrison, and for a while he was the highest paid nose guard in the league.
Yes, he was.
Okay.
Hey,
but a beast.
Tell me one other question. Who outside of Eric Wood is the greatest player from Cincinnati Elder, which I know they've had some great players?
My member guest partner from this year at Hurstbourne, he was from Elder. Kyle Rudolph, he's still playing tight end For the
I would say
Giants.
he's pretty good.
I'd say, yeah. I know
I'd
that
say
name.
Kyle Rudolph's pretty good. Had him in my
Yeah,
fantasy
he's
league one time,
Yeah,
so he's had to
same.
be. Yeah,
Same.
you gotta like Kyle Rudolph. I mean, he had a great year in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Was it 2 years ago or 3? Something like that. Anyways, well, hey Eric, really truly appreciate your time talking about various topics. I mean,
Eric,
and-
what's your golf goal? Where do you want to be as a golfer?
Wow, that's a good one too.
So my short-term goal, and I still got to discuss this with Josh. My short-term goal is I want to qualify for the state am next year.
There you go.
And play in the qualifiers where you get a caddy and all that.
Yep.
And part of the reason I want to do that is my kids never get to see me compete. And so like they could come out, I can have my father-in-law or whoever caddy for me, but that way my kids can like watch me and see how much passion I have for the game, and not just up at Firstborn when you're playing in a member guest
Sure.
or a member where they'll
Sure.
kind of ride around with my wife and maybe watch a couple holes. Like I want them to see Daddy grind on a golf course a little
there
bit.
you go.
So I got a ways to go, but Josh knows I'm willing to put the time in the work.
Well,
in.
I mean, and the competitor in you and the drive that you have and that you have shown, whether you were at Cincinnati Elder, University of Louisville, the Buffalo Bills, Eric, there's no doubt that you put a go out in front of you, you're going to go chase it hard.
Go play the
And
state am. Try to play the
Yeah.
Kentucky Open. I mean, it's
He's all
really
in, all
fun
in.
getting into those.
I thought you was going to go take Tony Romo over at the Lake Tahoe event there. But I mean, you know, let's do the AM scene first. I
I
love
like it
that.
though, man.
I
That's
love
great.
that. Well, hey Eric, we really appreciate your time here on Loopers for Life with Teague and I. Again, thank you very much. Thank you for everything that you've done in our community here in Louisville. Just tell us a little bit about your podcast and kind of what's next with Eric Wood.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So my podcast is called What's Next with Eric Wood. Take high performers in any industry, kind of pick their brains, take lessons that you can take in. It's a lot of sports. It's a lot of faith. It's a lot of fun. I'll bring on former teammates at times, and it's more of a locker room conversation. And then, at times you're getting some of the top business guys in the entire country giving some lessons there. So I like to keep it with a variety on the podcast. And, for me, what's next is hopefully these Bills get back on track here quick and have a little magical run and maybe go celebrate a Super Bowl with them.
Awesome.
There you go. I love it. Well, thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you on the practice tee at the Golf Academy here soon there, Eric.
Yes, sir.
Go
Appreciate
Cards.
it, guys.
Thanks, Eric.
Yes,
Go
sir.
Cards.
I like it, man. He's throwing
I
that
threw
go
my L's
cards
up
out
on
there.
that, dude.
Huh?
I'll L up on that. That's my
Jeez.
boy, dude. You know all the
right.
as much as we
Come on,
discuss
man.
all that.
You can't be
stuff.
hating on the background then.
Well, I only hate during Hater Week. All right, Eric. I appreciate it, buddy.
All right, so best atmosphere at a golf tournament, Ryder Cup. Would you agree?
Oh, without a doubt.
It's not even close.
No, it's not. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to go to the U.S. Open at Pinehurst, so it was in 2014. So that was
Right.
my first U.S. Open. Really, my first major experience outside of the PGA Championship here in Louisville, and really golf tournament.
Sure.
Truly. So the PGA Championship and going in '96 and 2000 and having all the accessibility that I had as a PGA professional. And,
Pretty cool.
yeah, doing some volunteering stuff. My week at the Ryder Cup was the greatest week, and I think it was just, it was, and historically, it's one of the greatest Ryder Cups ever played.
Yeah.
I mean, and so, Valhalla has that going for it.
Yep.
It is one of the greatest American Ryder Cups that was ever played. Outside of Brookline, where they came back in at the Country Club with Ben Crenshaw as the captain, and they had that historical comeback. I mean, it was just a great day, great experience. You got to go, I'm assuming, right?
The Ryder Cup experience. Now, look, I've got a pretty funny PGA story, but the Ryder Cup experience to me was second to none. The USAs and the Ole-Oles, and oh my gosh, man, it gives you chills.
Yeah, and then I went to the Masters, and so that experience.
The Masters has to been pretty
the Masters
close.
a little bit more above it because
Is it?
Yeah, just because it's like
Okay.
golf heaven, right?
I
so
feel
I mean,
that.
and so you kind of it's
And
like
you're walking the fairways and seeing
I
just
mean,
how
it's
perfect
just totally
it is.
different. But the Olays, the USAs, the NASCAR feel of a Ryder Cup, which
cool.
has turned. I mean, realistically, it turned at the War by the Shore back
Yeah.
in the '90s. We
Yep.
talked about that earlier in one of our podcasts. But yeah, the Ryder Cup is just definitely one of the best events in sport.
I agree.
In sport.
I agree, man. And just being able to root for your country and just have all these guys that you're just invested in. when you go to a PGA Tour, you may have a couple guys that you really want to see win, right? Just on a regular tour event. But you are so invested in your country and these guys winning, and man, it's just a cool experience.
Well, and it kind of goes back to what I said earlier about the Solheim Cup. I mean, the American golf teams have been losing. Yeah, we win the President's Cup, but who cares? Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. Who cares? Mm-hmm. Nobody cares about the President's Cup. I mean, it really makes it harder for the Americans to win the Ryder Cup because they're playing on the President's Cup team. And, Brooks Koepka has some interesting things to say about the Ryder Cup. And I don't know if you saw that.
No,
it was just late last night.
I want to hear.
This is fresh breaking news. I got this up on my phone because I don't want to misquote it.
I want to
hear. So
it.
if I don't want to, last time I tried to quote somebody, I was terrible.
Yeah,
you know why,
that
people?
was that Justin
Because I didn't
Thomas
have
quote.
my glasses. Let me get my readers
look
on.
at this. He's got his glasses
So when
on
you
now.
get these readers on, Brooks Koepka on the Ryder Cup, it's different. It's hectic. It's a bit odd. If I'm honest, I don't want to say it. It's a bad week. We're just so individualized, and everybody has a routine, a different way of doing things. And now it's like, okay, we have to be at a meeting at this time or go do this or do that. It's the opposite of what happens during a major week. Hey, guess what, Brooks? You're right. But you're playing for America, bro. This is a team event. This thing has been going on before you were even conceived. Man up. I mean, it's just 1 week. He is over the past, and I'm going to go off contingents of the Ryder Cup and come back to it. But man, this guy has turned into Shooter McGavin over the last few months.
My knee.
Did he play in Buffalo with Eric? Come on, bro.
My knee jerk on that is screw you, dude.
Man, you want to talk
like,
dude? Come on, Bryson. If I'm over there, I'm yelling Brooksy every time at Brooksy.
Right.
Yeah, come on, dude. Are you kidding me? That is so disappointing to hear leading up to this competition to win. Really, it is needed by America to win.
It's tone deaf is what it is.
It's needed by America to win.
It's a tone deaf comment because that's not. No American golf fan wants to hear that dude say that.
Right.
And nobody's going to have sympathy for him. Oh, we feel bad for you now. Oh, you're right. This must be hard on you. Come on, dude. Man up.
Man, you're playing for America.
And yes, playing in the PGA Tour is different. But guess what? Dude played college golf. It's kind of the same thing.
I'm sure he played on a
high school
Walker.
golf.
I don't know if he played on a Walker Cup team. And that's the thing. The team atmosphere in golf is limited. And to his point, you're never on it. But as an individual that's playing and as a junior golfer, and there's those teams, you want to play on that team.
Heck yeah, you want to be on that
make
team.
that team. And it's kind of like Eric was talking about when you got the guys in the locker room, the first 25 guys there aren't on the team. Mm-hmm. They're on that practice squad. Guess what they're doing? They're showing up. They're
trying
using
to get your
locker. They're trying to get your spot. And the hungriest guy is the guy that's up and coming and, that he's facing across. It's the same thing in golf, and you're going to have that this coming week. But for Brooks to say that, I was like, are you kidding me, bro? This came out last night. I don't know what has happened in the golf world, and I'm sure it's taken off of a life of its own today on Twitter, and we will hear more about this. But just my initial reaction last night was, I'm screenshotting this because this guy's become Shooter McGavin.
Hey, so, look.
Come on, dude.
I run a marketing agency, and a bit of that is PR work.
Right.
If one of these guys, let's say Justin Thomas was my guy, right, and I was his PR guy, I'd be setting up a meeting immediately to say, hey, look, we need to take those comments and we need to go the direct opposite direction. I need you to talk about how amazing of an experience this is,
the team,
how you can't wait to play for your country, and people are going to love you for that.
Right, and especially JT, it wouldn't be a bad thing for him from the publicity that he got earlier. And he's always been known to say, hey, this is the greatest experience for me, and love playing on the President's Cup team, and has made a Ryder Cup team. Playing in the Olympics, JT has always said the right thing, and for the majority, maybe so that is the truth. But it is a different week, and it throws them off their schedule. Maybe that's a built-in excuse from Brooks by having a crappy Ryder Cup record. I don't even know what it is, because we're going to talk about the Ryder Cup next week. I do want to talk about kind of going down what a little bit about the Ryder Cup this week is. All the captains made their picks. And the week while we were off, and first it was the USA, and they had six qualifiers and 6 captains picks.
Yep.
And then the European Tour, which went through Wentworth this past weekend, the BMW PGA Championship, won by American Billy Horschel. Do you know a fun fact? Only the second American to ever win that tournament.
Billy Ho.
Billy Ho from University of Florida, and
White man can't jump.
you know who the first American was? The only other American?
Ooh, seems like it's a trick question.
Yeah, he's a pretty great player.
Jack Nicklaus.
Oh, wrong. Arnold Palmer.
Okay,
Good guess,
I was
though.
close.
Yeah, you got to be able to guess either Jack or the King. I
close.
mean, it's the Bear or
Right.
Arnie. And I think that, it was really interesting because Billy Horschel had some comments that came out about not just, getting a call saying
Right.
that he's on the team, but getting a call saying, hey, you know what? You were up in there, won the world match play, and maybe his play didn't deserve it. But, during that time, Steve Stricker's picks and his captain's picks, you know what? They're not impressive. Now, give me
I would have
Xander.
taken Billy Ho.
Oh, before I take Billy Ho, you know who I'm taking? How do you not have Phil Mickelson on this team?
I totally agree.
He's a vice captain. Teague, this is the worst thing that has ever happened in golf.
He
And
should
I
be on
don't
the
care
team.
if he's playing well or not. He won a
I
PGA championship this year.
Totally agree.
He's one of the great Ryder Cup players ever, and he's dropping bombs out there. Are you kidding me?
How does Stricker not take him?
I was so disappointed in this. So, I mean, that was my first disappointment. Now, I have to say, Steve Stricker, I think you have really taken your captain's picks and made a mistake, A, by not having Phil Mickelson, and then B, by putting on a guy like Scotty Scheffler. I mean, come on now. I mean, Scotty has had a great year, and I respect the hell out of this guy's game, and he has played well coming down the stretch. But Phil Mickelson?
They said that
you kidding me?
they took Scheffler because of his performance in the match play championship, but it's like, and
Well, give me Billy Ho then. Billy Ho won the match play championship if you're going to do that.
I totally agree. First and foremost, Phil Mickelson should be on this team. It's a crime that he's not. Second, Scheffler he's a birdie machine, so they say, which is great for that type of format, but we'll see. Dude better show up. Because he's got a target on his back now. Because we're not the only ones saying this guy shouldn't be on the team.
Well,
right now.
no, there's not. And I mean, and you have the guys like Xander Schauffele and Tony Finau and Jordan Spieth. I mean, it's great to see Jordan play his way back onto this team,
And
play
Jordan,
his back way in consideration.
I'm on the fence with Spieth.
Well, you've been on the fence with Spieth forever. But I mean,
know, but he's.
It's like
I get it, and I guess his world ranking's around 15th or so. So he's borderline. I get the Spieth pick, but again, that's another guy that Phil Mickelson.
Well,
should have
you
been
got
ahead
three. I mean, Daniel Berger's had a great year, and again had a couple of top tens as he's played in majors, and so there's some serious consideration. Harris English, a former Walker Cup player. I mean, great year again. But are you going to tell me is it better than Phil Mickelson's year?
No.
I mean, there's no way. I mean, hey, he played in the top 10 in the major, so what? Phil won a major.
Yeah, he won
Phil
the PGA.
won a major. He beat your man Brooks, who doesn't even want to be on your team,
right.
Steve Stricker.
But let me ask you this, Josh.
He beat him.
Phil being a vice captain, they had this conversation. I mean, because Phil, they had to have gone to him and be like, do you want to play, right?
Maybe they put him on the vice captain team because the vice captain can go in and play. I mean, I don't know.
They can't play, can
they can't. I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, just put him on the squad like Billy Ho was like, hey, if somebody gets hurt, I'm coming up.
Yeah.
You want to kick somebody off this team, I'm coming up.
I'm ready.
And then you got the Europeans on the other side who embrace this tournament. They take the Ryder Cup and they make it one level above the Open Championship.
It's a big deal.
They make it above the Open
And
Championship.
I tell you what, that European team looks solid.
Well, I mean, that European team is headlined by John Rahm, the number one player in the world, followed quickly by Rory McIlroy, who's been the number one player in the world. You have all kinds of players that are up and coming from them, like Tommy Fleetwood, Victor Hovland. You got Matt Fitzpatrick, another young guy that's on their team. And then you got, and this is where, again, Steve Stricker should have looked and said, okay, hey, you know what? They got Lee Westwood that's going to play. There's my single match against
Sergio.
They got they're in Poulter.
Ian Poulter.
The three captains picks from the European side were Sergio Garcia, Ian Poulter, Mr. Ryder Cup, and then Shane Lowry, who is one of the great match play players ever. I mean, from Northern Ireland. And so, and I always like how I say Ireland because I've been in Northern Ireland. He's from Northern Ireland. Shane Lowry is. He's a great links player. But
Typically, there's like a few guys that I've never really heard of, but this year there's only one.
man,
I mean, it's a pretty star-studded team. On their
Weisenberger.
side. I don't know who he is.
Yeah, he's played well this whole year. He's
But
had a great year.
he's the only one I've
He's on
never-
a merit. You know, Terrell Hatton, who's
Yeah,
a fiery
dude can play.
guy. That dude
Yep.
can play. I mean, so they got to, and then they got Paul Casey, another guy that Phil Mickelson has
Another vet.
dominated.
Another vet.
He's dominated Steve Stricker. Steve Stricker needs a mulligan. And at first I was like, you know what? He needs a mulligan for Billy Horschel. But no, he doesn't. He needs a
it for
mulligan
Phil
for Phil.
Mickelson.
I mean, everybody was talking about, Billy Horschel. Phil Mickelson, Steve, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And so I've been, team turmoil is already going on. Now, we will talk about the Ryder Cup all next week.
Yep.
We're going to give it its due process. Really excited about next week's podcast. But, we're excited about today because that was our first.
He would, man.
He would, man. I mean, that guy just dropped out some serious knowledge.
Here's,
how to get better.
Here's what I love, Josh. So, obviously we've been golfers for life, but what I think's so cool is these guys that excel at a different sport, whether it be football, basketball, baseball, and then they turn to golf and they're like, man, what a sport this is.
Yeah.
It's the toughest game in the world to play, to be good at.
Right.
Not physically, but to be good at. It's the toughest game in the world. And these guys get ate up with it.
Well, it is. And I mean, and as a golf instructor, when I have the opportunity to work with athletes, and it's kind of like what Eric said when we were talking, I'll never forget. I mean, he had told me that he had played golf as a kid, and, he's coming in as a 300-pound offensive lineman and hitting a pitcher wedge from 105. I was like, hold up, bro. What are you doing? but I mean, to see, that is what makes golf such a great sport. I mean, it is a game of a lifetime. He even said it. Harvey Pinnock wrote a book about it. Who's a great instructor that was in Texas, a club professional, and wrote one of the best books in golf. But it's such a great game that you can pick it up, come to the sport, and improve wherever you're at. You could be a 25 handicapper and go to a 20.
Yep.
Go to a 15. Go to a 10. I gave a lesson to a guy who's a gentleman, 78 years old, who I taught a lesson 22 years ago when I was working at the country club.
That's awesome.
And he said, that was the best golf I've ever played in my life in that summer. And so I want to come back and take a lesson with you.
How cool is that?
Yeah. And I'm like, I haven't taught this guy in 22 years. And
how cool is it he's 78 taking a lesson?
Well, and he has taken some time off away from the game, and he's coming back, and he was like, I'm 78 years old. I'm playing golf. I've always played golf. He goes, I want to get better. And so, you can come to that. And then, as Eric said, I mean, you have all these guys that were historically great athletes in other sports that come to a Jim Kelly event and play golf with him.
So cool.
Yeah, and I mean, and the fundraising that comes out of the game with the charity outings.
Oh yeah,
and
it's unlike any other sport in that.
It really
aspect.
is. I mean, because there is no sport that gives to the charities like the game of golf does. I mean, it is. Every sport has a golf outing.
It does, and I know some people poke a little bit of fun. Like you look at J.R. Smith saying he's going to go play college golf. I'm like, good luck. I don't think he's going to be able to make it. But the fact that these guys just get ate up with the game because it's so difficult, because it's so hard to master, it's a pretty cool thing. It's always been cool to me that a guy like Michael Jordan, he's just so ate up with golf.
Yeah, and has been ate up. I got the Michael Jordan bucket hat from the '96 Olympics when he was over in Paris.
Yeah,
that he wore when he was going to the golf course and he had his clubs.
Yeah,
I saw it on one of the Facebook ads. And I was like, buy it.
Done.
I mean,
Done.
I love a good bucket hat.
I love it.
Yeah,
man.
and so it is good. And I mean, in like these events, the Ryder Cup and the Solheim Cup for the girls, which was great golf at Inverness, and we didn't really get to talk about, but the Europeans, really dominated. They came out and dominated from the start, and we're going to kind of go about why the Europeans dominate for the start and the foursomes, four-ball, kind of formats next week and whatnot. But it puts the game in the fort. In the front light.
Yep.
And I mean, and so to be able to continue forth with this building that the game has found through the pandemic as being one of the only sports that was kind of eligible to play because being outdoors and you're alone and you're not on a team.
Right.
I mean, kind of going to Brook. Maybe Koepka has a little bit of the, CDC in him, which is, Central Deschambault syndrome.
Hey, look, man. If I'm
but-
Stricker, I do not play
Oh,
Koepka until look. You want to play? All right, you play in the final day match.
if I do,
I don't need
he's
to play anywhere else.
automatically paired with Bryson. I'm just going to say, hey, you
That
know
ain't
what?
happening.
I'm pairing you
That
with
ain't
Bryson. We'll
happening.
talk about that. But it is great to have the game of a lifetime and you know, and see what everything, you know, the game of golf does for all these other revenues,
Yeah.
all these other charities, all these other things that are within the community that our dollars need it.
Our dollars need it. And I tell you, man,
Yeah.
you know what else is super cool? I can go play golf with my 74-year-old dad and my 12-year-old son. And it's just you can't do that. It's not like we're going out and shoot. I mean, yeah, we can go out on a bass, but we can't go play competitive
You're gonna
basketball.
shoot horse. I mean,
yeah, you know what I
something like
mean.
it,
But
right.
we can go out and we can compete.
Right.
It's pretty cool.
Well, and that's what Eric said. I mean, I really like that, and as I have known Eric and helped him with his golf game at the beginning, you know, to hear him say goals like that, and the reason why,
yeah,
you know,
That's
it's not-
pretty cool.
Hey, the reason why
Yeah, I wanna
was
go
even
see my
better.
kids
It's
see me
like, hey,
compete.
and his kids are young,
Yeah.
so they're gonna, you know, as he's giving himself a few years because his kids really aren't going to remember the 4-year-old version of this. They're going to
Yep.
remember it when they're 10, 12, and then they put, you know, they see Daddy grinding, and guess what? He's going to, you know, little E.
Little E.
Wood,
Wood.
he's
Yep.
going to be grinding. They'll G-man.
For
so
sure.
and so will his daughter and all those other sports. So let's talk about grinding real quick. I
Yeah.
know we're getting towards the end of this
Yep.
this podcast, and we got to talk about the start of the 2022 golf season
Okay.
now, with their 3 weeks off that they had, and they are back in California at Napa. It's the Fortnite Championship, played at Silverado Resort and Spa. It's been there for a few years. Jarrett Wolf's
I was
PGA
going to
Tour
ask
Depot.
you.
Yeah.
So is he going to get to play?
Is his debut right there, and
Okay.
so it's exciting times for golf fans here in Louisville, Kentucky, to watch Jarrett, who has worked so diligently from the college rankings all the way through the mini tour rankings to the PGA Tour. Fantastic season. We've talked about him on the Corn Ferry, but really having.
Ah, man, I hope he does.
Yeah,
well.
I mean, you know, he's got a clean. Everybody kind of that doesn't have all the world rankings are taking advantage of the opportunities that are in front of them now, while the best players in the world take 3 months off like they should, right? I mean, so the golf season being stretched out now is more so for the development of all these guys going to the PGA Tour, in my opinion. And, you know, these next 2 months present a lot of opportunities to make money, to go forward to the, you know, making your PGA Tour card and
I
keeping it.
don't remember if it was Corey. I had a conversation with somebody, and my question was, do you think he'll compete? And the answer was, look, man, he didn't get there overnight.
Right.
So it's not like this just happened out of nowhere. This has been a grind for a lot of years. He's ready.
Yeah, he's more than ready, and I think that, you know, as we did talk to Corey, I mean, you know, his game will translate to this with a little bit longer golf courses, and it's just going to be exciting to see his growth over the next few weeks, and hopefully, you know, again, these opportunities on the PGA Tour now, an event like this. I mean, there is some really good players that are playing in this, and obviously, I mean, it's the PGA Tour, it's
Sure.
the greatest players on earth, but you know, it is an opportunity for the Corn Ferry guys and for a guy like John Augustine, who's from Owensboro, Kentucky, getting a sponsor's exemption in, who's, you know, really playing on, hopefully to be playing on the Corn Ferry Tour because he's on the Frome Tour, and so you get these chances to play your way in and play your way to the next week,
Right.
and or, you know, get a dub and maybe play your way into the Masters next year.
What's with the Frome Tour? What is that
The
all
Frome
about?
Tour was kind of a quick start COVID development league of the McKenzie Tour, which is the Canadian tour.
Okay.
And basically because of travel restrictions and what Canada did with COVID, the Frome Tour had all these guys that had exemptions that were over on this side, and then they played them pretty much in the Southeast. I mean, they were pretty localized. Florida, Georgia, had an event up in Indiana at Covered Bridge.
Yeah, Covered Bridge. Yep.
And so, you know, there's pretty
Well, I
much
see
played.
where Cooper Musselman's playing that. I saw where
Billy
Trey,
Tom Sargent,
Trey Shirley's
Trey
playing.
Shirley, Billy Tom Sargent, who's another great Kentucky golfer,
Mm-hmm.
played at Western Kentucky, and obviously in John Augustine, who played
Yep.
at Vanderbilt. So, you know, when you look at that, I mean, that tour was kind of developed around the McKenzie Tour and the
gotcha.
guys that couldn't go across the border. So, you know, this week over here, I mean, fantastic field. again, missing some of the key Ryder Cup players, but you got a guy like Hideki Matsuyama who's in the field. You got a guy like Kevin Na who's in the field. I mean, there is a lot of good players that are in this field this week. Will Zalatori, who was the Rookie of the Year. I mean, how about that? I mean, there's a guy, Teague, that had no exemptions on the PGA Tour to start.
And made Rookie of the Year. Oh, man.
Playing
what
from
a story that is.
I mean, his story is really incredible.
I didn't think about that until you just said it. Yeah, he had
no member. He had nothing. Now,
he qualified for something and then just
qualified for the U.S. Open,
right?
Yeah, he qualified for the U.S. Open, and it got him into
pretty cool.
It got him his finish in that U.S.
That's
Open
right.
in 2020. Got him into the field of the Masters, his top 10. Got him into the field of his top 10.
And then just he got exemptions, and
he made cut after cut after cut, and his game traveled. I mean, he was fantastic.
That's awesome.
Had a great year. Congratulations,
That's
Patrick
awesome.
Cantley. Player of the Year. He
deserved it.
Man, did he deserve it? I mean, not only did he win the FedEx Cup champion, I mean, how he handled himself at Eastlake, Teague, that was huge. I mean, he really played well. And again, he battled John Rahm. He battled another guy who was hitting it 30 to 50 yards by him, like he did the week before with Bryson DeChambeau.
Let me ask you this, though. Patrick Cantley winning Player of the Year, is that bad for golf?
No. That was fantastic for golf.
You think?
Yeah, and his story, his backstory of having, not having any exemption. He lost his playing kind of privileges, had his best friend die when he witnessed it. He's got a story that is unlike any others.
Yeah, but he doesn't have the personality.
Well, he doesn't have the on-course personality because, and he's even talked about it. But when you listen to his talks about it, he is definitely in.
He's a smart guy.
He's another zone.
Calculated.
He's very calculated. His last 4 tournaments, every round was in the 60s. Think about that. In the FedEx Cup, in the Challenge, when the stakes are at the highest, and he played toe for toe against Bryson DeChambeau and John Rahm back-to-back weeks.
He's just
a great year,
He's just not the star some of these other guys are. And is it good for golf? That's all I'm saying.
I think it's great for golf. I mean, his story is great for golf, and his demeanor. I mean, he's not Brooks Koepka. I guarantee you, Patrick Cantley's pumped to be on this Ryder Cup team.
And
he was the last guy to qualify.
No doubt.
Yeah, and then you got a guy like Brooks who's like, another thing that Brooks says that he's going to win all the majors. Now, hey, Brooks, I'm for you.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, I'm okay with you on that.
Just don't go against your country. Right?
No doubt.
I mean, go over to South Korea or something.
Doubt.
You want to be talking that.
Well, let's North Korea is North Korea. Don't go to South Korea because then you just be good at golf. I mean, that's what they do. North Korea though, your golf game's going to suffer. I promise you.
Yeah, you no doubt about that.
Unless you're Dennis Rodman, and I bet you Dennis Rodman is probably shot in the 60s in North Korea.
So we were talking about the Full Send podcast, and they had Dennis Rodman on.
Yes,
and they said, "Hey, do you think we can get Kim Jong Un on?"
I did see that on.
It was Dennis Rodman.
Oh yeah, he's probably breaking 70 every time he tees it up over there in North Korea.
I'm sure.
Hey, give me your pick real quick, Fortnite. I know you didn't have anything, but I'm going to give you a couple fantasy plays real quick. I hear that music.
I don't even know who I'm picking.
Oh, you got to go.
I don't know.
All right. Let's go with.
Is Tony Finau playing? I've taken him the last 30 times.
He is not playing. He is not playing,
I don't know.
sir.
I don't have a pick.
So you got Camilo Villegas. You got Joyce pick.
No.
I'm going with Kevin Na here, folks. This guy has played well. He's had a 2nd, 7th, and a T11th. He's in the field. He's playing one of the highest ranked players.
Kevin
in the
Na
field.
could play, man.
Kevin Na, and it is in California. I mean, and I think he's a California kid. Maybe not.
Kind of a interesting looking guy.
Man, he's a good dude, man. I love that guy. I mean, I love the fact that he battled. You want to talk about golf course demons? That guy battled him.
Oh, yeah, he did.
Yeah, and look at him now. I mean, he's playing great. What a great game we're involved with. Loopers for Life. Appreciate you listening. Thank you, Eric Wood. Check out his podcast, What's Next with E. Wood. You can find him on Instagram and all that. Speaking of Instagram and all that, find us, Loopers for Life. Share this on Facebook.
Yes, sir.
Share this on Facebook.
Something else important, Josh. If you like our podcast, go into Apple Podcasts, give us that 5-star rating. That helps more people see our podcast. It gets it out there more. Give us that 5-star.
Hey, we're going to talk about that next on our next episode. Ryder Cup week's coming. Let's go, America.
USA.
Bryson.